Okay, so we have a Commodore 16. That's what we're going to look at today. You can see one running in the background, and they are nice machines when they're run. They get a bad rap, they get a bit of a bad deal, but trying to get one working today is a little bit of a pain because they're not very popular. They weren't very good sellers, and now a lot of them just got thrown away because people upgraded to bigger and better machines. So they're hard to find, hard to come by, but I managed to secure some parts from eBay, and it was quite a nice find. It was a non-working machine, which I've decided to make one really good one out of both. I knew it had some faults, and I knew it did have a broken keyboard as well. So let's have a look, and let's see how we got one of these machines back to its as original condition as possible. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so today we're going to look at this Commodore 16. It's a very sorry piece of hardware, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think the review before was the fact that they weren't particularly well built, but it now seems that it depends on where they were built as to how well they were built, because this case, although it has some broken keys, the case feels like a VIC-20 case, an early VIC-20 case. So I'm just going to compare it to the other Commodore 16 I have. Okay, now if you look at it, the keyboard's even a different colour, and it's not faded through sun damage. It is physically a different colour, and it's quite startling how different they both are, and they're meant to be the same machine. This keyboard is more of a creamy colour, so even if you wanted to repair this keyboard, you would find it very difficult to get hold of the correct shading on the keys. And this one feels really solid, while this one is built like a some kind of kiddie's toy. And now my initial plan was to repair this one, okay, and you can hear it creak. You can see the colour difference on the keys. This is such a nice keyboard in comparison to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take the parts out of the eBay one at the bottom, and I'm going to keep this machine with the more solid case. And what I'm going to do is my original machine with the creaky case is to swap all the good bits from this one onto this machine. Now it's quite surprising because it's just amazing how you can get two of exactly the same machine, apparently, which are so different. They're so different not only in build quality, but in keyboard shading and keyboards themselves. So it's a bit bonkers, really. But we're going to fix this other machine up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take the eBay one apart. We're going to get them put back together as one nice machine. So we're just going to have to undo all of the screws. There's basically 3 along the front, which I'll do now. Once you've taken the 3 screws out, we're going to flip it over as we've just done, and we're just going to remove the top half of the keyboard. Okay, and it just unplugs here. So nice and gently as you unplug it, because you don't want to break anything on what is roughly a working machine. Now we've got 2 halves separated. What I want to do is take the keyboard out because this case is in really good condition and I'm going to reuse this case on building this machine up. So with the machine upside down, we just see we've got to remove these screws and we're going to take the keyboard out. And now the last screw. Okay, once you've done that, just lift the keyboard away. And there we have it, one broken keyboard. Okay, I'm just going to take the good bezel away and then we're going to take the other one apart using exactly the same method of removing the 3 screws and the keyboard screws. Okay, we'll turn the machine over, screws are out, and we're going to do exactly the same to remove the power lead and the keyboard cable. Okay, and we're just going to put this machine to one side because we don't need this anymore. Okay, the next job is to remove the keyboard assembly itself, exactly the same. Okay, I got half the screws out now, just the other half to go. And now the final screw. Okay, we can lift the keyboard assembly away, and it's a really nice keyboard assembly. But the colour difference is stunning. I mean, we've got this assembly here, and then the broken one. And it's just like 2 completely different keyboards. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use this keyboard in the nice bezel. So we're going to take away the damaged bezel, or the scratched up bezel. It's not so pretty, but you know, it wasn't really bad. But if you got a nicer part to use, then that's the best way forward. So back with the good keyboard, and we're going to replace it with this nice Commodore 16 bezel. So let's swap the keyboard around and let's just lie it down, making sure none of the wires get in the way. And then we're just going to start screwing in the keyboard. Start from the middle so you can line everything up. There's no point starting from one end, because if you start from a corner you can't adjust the keyboard, which is what I'm doing now to match the actual standoff holes. So you just place the key in one at a time, nice and loosely, and make sure it all lines up. Okay, not long to go, only another one, and then all you have to do then is tighten down the keyboard screws, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. Okay, all the screws are nice and tight, and now we have a nice looking Commodore 16 keyboard back in a nice shell. So the next part of this is to replace the TED chip on the original motherboard, which is what I'm going to do now. This is our Commodore 16, and the TED chip here is the one that's causing problems. So all I'm going to do is replace the TED chip and put it in the original machine. So what we're doing is using parts from the eBay machine into the machine I know that works properly apart from the TED chip. So having changed the TED chip, I'm just pushing it home nice and firmly and making sure that it's nice and well seated. This board's pretty clean. There's a little bit of surface rust on the RF shielding on here, but nothing massively to cause any issues. Other than that, the system board's pretty much clean and tidy. We just need to clean out a few of the bits of dust where it's been sat around for a while. Now before we go any further, we need to check this machine out and make sure that this TED chip actually works. Again, I got a power supply with the eBay machine, but I don't trust it, so I'm going to use a brand new 9-volt power supply for this machine, just to make sure that we're not going to cause any problems to it. And this is the 9-volt power supply. It's a lot smaller than the original, but it's got to be a lot safer than using a very old power supply now. So we're going to plug the machine in, RF lead, make sure we do have some form of display. Next thing to do is to plug in the power lead. And there we go, we have a Commodore 16 up and running now. So we just got to put it back together. Okay, and another power on, power off, just to be on the safe side, and then give it a quick reset as well. So everything seems to be in order. Reassembly is quite straightforward. It's literally making sure that these little clips are seated in the back of the case correctly, otherwise it won't close. And then all you have to do is to reconnect the power, and then reconnect the keyboard, making sure that you have the gap in the pin the right way around so you don't bend any pins. Okay, once it looks like it's together, all you need to do is turn the machine over and then screw it all in the way it should be. Put the screws back in the case, which is what I'm going to do now. Okay, I'm just going to put the final screw in the case, and we're going to make sure it's nicely fastened down. And now we have a fully functional, working Commodore 16 computer. With a nice working keyboard. Which is where we should have been a little while ago, but with the original Commodore 16, it had a TED chip problem as well as a processor problem, and that was all down to somebody plugging in a computer without checking the voltage on the power supplies. So this is a fully working machine. And now we have Mr. Puniverse running the way it should on a Commodore 16, which is cool because it was basically another junk eBay find used for parts, and the parts that came out of it were worth more than I actually paid for the machine, because the TED chip now is quite a lot of money if you can get hold of one, and the case itself, you'd have to buy a complete machine to grab a case for it. Okay, so we have a Commodore C16 now working, which is cool. which is where I wanted to be a little while ago, but they're getting hard to find. Commodore 16s are getting very thin on the ground because they weren't very popular and they're not very reliable. So if you can build one out of 2 or 3 or 5 to get one working one, then that's the route you may have to go. So I hope you enjoyed this. So thank you for watching this, and hope to see you on this channel very shortly. Okay, please subscribe if you liked it, and we'll do some more content very shortly. Thank you.